Hello and welcome to the Story Behind the Stories, your weekly look at the pages of the Neepawa Banner Press. Thank you very much for taking a little bit of your time and spending it right here with us on NAC TV. I'm Eoin Devereux, news reporter with the Banner Press, welcoming you to the show, and I'm joined this week by owner-operator Ken Waddell of the Banner Press. Good to have you here, Ken.
It's always good to be here. I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate the viewers listening to us and learn a little more about what's going on in Neepawa.
I just realized, Ken, it's another Hatless Thursday for you there. I mean,
there you go, eh?
That's part of the gimmick. You've got to, you know, are you trying to diversify? What are you doing here?
Sure.
Or are you just getting some new hats fitted? Is that it?
No, I can't afford any new hats. I spent $75 on one in the U.S. last year. That's it.
That's a pretty good price, actually, for those hats. So
Yeah.
that's genuinely, that's not bad, actually. You know, you see the price year over year on most stuff. You know, that'd be what, $225, $230 now nowadays.
Well, it's interesting because that hat, it would surprise people. I bought it at a bourbon distillery, in Lexington, Kentucky. And people say, what's Ken doing in a distillery? But that's a long story.
And we'll probably get into it one of these days. But let's get into the actual stories we've got printed on the page of this week's edition of the Banner Press. And a huge story we're very proud to be able to give you an update on is the construction of the new hotel for the town of Neepawa. You've seen the sign out there in that lot for how long now? Almost coming up, it feels like forever, but it's in around a year and a half, 2 years or so. And we're finally seeing some progress happening there. There are some machines on the ground, there's some work being done, and we had the official groundbreaking actually occur just this week on Monday the 17th. I was able to go out there and speak to some of the representation from the conglomerate for the Best Western Plus. It's about 40 shareholder group that is involved with that. Murray Parrott is one of the people primarily I spoke with. He and
Marvin.
Those others are very pleased, very happy to be able to progress on this and move forward finally. It feels like it had been sort of stuck in quicksand for the longest time, and a lot of it was not self-imposed, Ken. A lot of it was just other factors. There's a lot of that the last 3 years, isn't there?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think they've been diligent, and you hear the term due diligence, and there's quite a bit of evidence in what they've talked about lately. And we'll talk about Murray going to speak to the Rotary Club later too, but a lot of due diligence. And I talked to the head guy from Best Western, the director for the area.
Was that Gilles?
Yeah.
Yep, yeah. Gilles Landry. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, I talked to Mr. Dorn, who's from Brannan, who's designing and ramrodding the construction thing. They're putting a lot of thought into this, and I'm happy to see it. It should be a very good project.
When you put that type of investment in there, most definitely you want to make sure there is a lot of forethought in there. The expansion of the facility as well. Last week we had a photo and a cut line that had information in there of about, I think it was about 67 rooms initially, but there have been changes, and we're going to be talking about that, as Ken just prefaced a few minutes ago, Murray Parrott's discussion at the Rotary Club, where it's actually going to be, if I remember right, I think 72 or 73 rooms now.
72, yeah.
So they've been able to expand the size of it in that manner. And again, they have the feeling that that is going to be very much suitable, optimal for the town of Neepawa and for the outlying community. It's very interesting to see how they're playing this out. They took a lot of time. They didn't just sort of go, okay, Best Western, let's do this, let's go here. They were very thorough in their examinations. This local shareholder group went out. They looked at some of the different hotel chains, some of the franchises, and how they dealt with regional and local groups and local and regional franchisees. And they felt that Best Western Plus, for what they wanted, worked best for them. And again, this is not one-sided. Best Western Plus as well. And their management had to see this local group and see that they were serious about what they were going to do and see that they had the wherewithal and the financial wherewithal to be able to back it up. So this is one of those things that it takes time. It's a little bit slow, but when you're talking about numbers like this, you best be slow and make sure it gets done right.
You know, it's interesting because the last new motel built here was Bay Hills. But I know some of the history there because I worked with, sold ads to the contractor the land developer who developed that. And when they went to build Bay Hill, which is now Bay Hill but was Super 8, they were advised, the people that built that were advised, go bigger. And they went about 32 rooms. So this is 72 rooms. Now they were advised to go bigger because at 32 rooms, they were advised 20 years ago or more that you had to have a live-in manager suite. The only way it would work. They said, oh, no, we'll hire management and whatever. And it didn't work. And I know it didn't work because the owner came to me, actually when I was mayor of the town, and made an appeal to me and to council to lower the taxes and to get a subsidy from the town, which of course didn't fly. But if they'd been bigger or had a live-in manager, they might have had a little different situation. This place now, and will be 72, and will obviously have not a live-in manager, but a management team.
It's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. Again, along with speaking with Murray Parrott about this, also spoke with Marvin Beaumont. He's part of the conglomerate, the shareholders group, that is a part of this as well. And I had an opportunity with Gilles Landry, the representative from Best Western Plus. Just a little quick aside, this shows you exactly how small of a world we actually live in. Gilles Landry is an individual I am familiar with because back in the 90s, remember then, back in the mid-90s, I was working, I had just gotten out of university and was obviously working as a busboy and a bartender because that's what happens after you get out of university and your major isn't as specific as it should have been. But, that's again a story for another time. And I was working at the Victoria Inn in Brandon, and my manager was Gilles Landry. He was working there. He was running the Victoria Inn. Always a good boss, I found. Very straightforward with you on all aspects of it. And he's moved on. Now he's an owner and an operator of a Best Western Plus based out of Winnipeg. So that just shows how small it actually is. As soon as I heard the name, and he's got a tinge of a French accent, as soon as I heard the accent as well, it was like, that's familiar. That is very familiar to me. I went over to him and said, Gilles, you were formerly at the Victoria Inn in Brandon, right? He said, yes, I was. It was like, Eoin Devereux, you may not remember me, but I worked for you for about 2 years in the mid-90s there. So, that, again, like I said, that just shows you how small these little business sectors and whatnot in Manitoba really can be sometimes.
Did he remember you?
He pretended to.
Good manager. Well, the good news about that is that you did not cause trouble, or he really would have remembered you.
No, again, I was pretty much out of college there, and if I remember correctly, there were enough other staffers that worked at the Victoria Inn that caused enough trouble that I would have been down the list. I mean, it was strange. It was almost like a little bit of a frat house there. So,
oh dear.
But again, that's, like I said, all these are stories for another day. Let's focus on the most important story as well. If you pick up a copy of this week's edition of the Banner Press, you're going to be able to see a pair of artist renderings inside the paper. Daytime and a nighttime artist rendering of what they expect the facility is going to look like. And I got to say, I am thoroughly and utterly impressed with what it could be. Their hope right now is a September 2024 opening. And this means more, Ken, it seems like. It could mean more than just new jobs locally. It could also apparently look like new opportunities to bring in businesses, to bring in events. That, I think, is great overall for the town of Neepawa.
Well, I think it's indicated in the story there that Murray Parrott says they've been approached by other businesses, and I know the town still has 12 acres of land there north of the hotel site commercial, highway commercial land on Highway 5, highly visible, fairly visible actually from Highway 16, and of course, literally a stone's throw from Highway 16 and 5. So yeah, and it's fully serviced land, got all that housing around it. I counted up the other day when we were out there for the opening, did a rough count because somebody was asking me about the housing. And I did a bing, 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 bing rough count. And I think there's 180 housing units on that site now when you count all this week, because there's 4 or 5 apartment blocks now, plus the all the 40-some houses.
Yep.
You know, so it's huge, the development there.
And it's going to be interesting to see how quickly the business development occurs out in that area, because there are no franchises or businesses that really want to be that first one to jump. They won't want to be the first one through the door usually. But Best Western Plus is that first one through the gate right now, and I think that's going to spur interest from a lot of others very soon. This is just hearsay on my part. I haven't heard any specifics on that. No specific groups, no specific businesses, no specific events or anything like that. But it just, you get that sense, you get that feeling that it could be a turning point right now.
Well, on that corner, we've got Tim Hortons and the Co-op just off the corner. We've got Boston Pizza. Of course, there's the Petro-Canada. And then there's the lot, which isn't blank, although there's beside it is Subway, of course, but is the Chicken Delight, and that's the big question there. Because we know at a public meeting in the town council a few weeks ago, there was a person inquiring there about buying the little piece of orphaned land between Chicken Delight and Stonehouse Crescent, is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And there used to be a road, but now it's not a road in between there, and so they aren't inquiring about that just out of the good of their health. They're looking at doing something with that Chicken Delight site to do something, whatever it might be.
More on that and those other portions of land, most definitely, I'd imagine, in a future edition of the Neepawa Banner Press. Let's shift over from the outdoors into the indoors, where Murray Parrott was able to share some information just after we went to print with last week's edition of the newspaper. So Ken, you had a story put together. It was just a touch too late. We went to print. That's the unfortunate thing. We go to print every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And I got to say, unfortunately, it's one of those cases of more often than not. And one of these days I'll get you to flip on this, Ken, because we used to go to print on Thursdays. It seems like we always have this big thing that happens at Wednesday at 2:30. That seems to be the...
With our luck, big things would switch to Thursday.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it was interesting to listen to Murray. And Murray is, he's detailed. There's no question about that. And he's been involved with property development and apartment blocks, or condos, I guess, for quite a while, both here in Neepawa and in Minnedosa. So he knows what he's doing in terms of the construction process. But he said they went to visit a lot of other hotels, including Best Western, of course. And some interesting things he brought up. One is that he said the laundry is processing is right behind the front desk. And I thought, wow, that's different. Well, at night, the front desk clerk doesn't have a lot to do, so they can fold laundry.
Okay, all right.
I think folding laundry might be a lot better than being bored all night long, but you got to have somebody on the desk all night. Yeah. And they may as well have something productive to do. Yeah. He talked about some of the other layout things in terms of, where the washers and dryers would be, and where not to put things, and put noisy stuff away from where the people are, and all kinds of things like that. That they've done a lot of studying on that. They looked at the Best Western hotels at Winkler and Morden, which they really liked what they saw there. And he also is fairly optimistic, because if they can get the place built by September, October, November next year, they will still have a year plus of construction activity in town at the hospital. And the hospital workers there construction workers, are desperate for places to live. They're renting houses in town. One person I know bought a house in town because he was going to be here for 3 years. So they're going to get some of that. And then, of course, the school has been announced. It will be built, theoretically, starting in 24, maybe 25. So there's going to be 2 or 3 years a couple of years of construction there. And so they go to the room count. Well, I think I'm be ballparking now, but I think it's about 30 rooms at Neepawa Motel. I think it's about 30-ish at Westway.
Yep.
And I know there's 32 at Bay Hills. So 90 rooms, less than 100 rooms.
Well,
Total.
and again, what's the situation with the Vivian?
Well, the Vivian is all permanent housing.
It's all permanent now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's all permanent housing. I don't think you can go into the Vivian and rent a hotel room for the night anymore.
Oh, okay.
I think they've converted it all to permanent housing.
Okay.
And so there's definitely a shortage of accommodation. And with all the construction going on, because the hope with this hotel and the other hotels as well is that with now 170 rooms compared to 100 rooms,
Yep.
they would be able to host bigger events for 1 or 2 day conventions or even 3-day events, such as the curling, for example. 3 times in our memory we've had the curling here, and they've always been very shorter rooms.
Yeah.
Very short.
You've had to go to Brandon, or you've had to go into Minnedosa, or pretty much every outlying community you can think of, but a lot commuting in and out during the day in from Brandon.
Yeah. There's no motel or hotel in Gladstone anymore because that had a very unfortunate fire.
Yeah.
And the motel was gone anyway because it had been sold, repurposed. So, yeah, no, and you go north of here, it's McCreary, 35 miles before you can find a hotel. Carberry, 30 miles to the south. So it's going to center some more activity, the possibility for more activities in Neepawa for sure.
That's right. More activity, and hopefully that means more people out and about during the nice periods of the year when it's spring, summer, and fall. And if you want to do that, you got to have some good pathways, walkways, bikeways to be able to do something like that. That aspect of active transportation. So now the town of Neepawa wants your opinions on how they can diversify that, how they can improve that. They got a new survey. It's on their website if you check it out. And we also have a story on that in this week's edition of the Neepawa Banner Press about this survey. They want to hear your thoughts and your opinions on how they can better improve the concept of active transportation in the community. Now, let's define the term first off. Active transportation is essentially for the layman, like me, is walking, running, biking, anywhere from that point A to point B.
With some physical effort to it.
With some physical effort to it. Something I try and avoid. The whole walking thing, I try and avoid that as much as I can, let alone running.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they feel like it's something that they can do to improve the community, but they want to get some mindset from citizens. And that's what they're doing. It's, like I said, it's on the website. They're very interested in learning a little bit more from you. Well, let me get your opinion on this, Ken. Obviously, you've seen every aspect of it as a politician, as a newspaperman, as just a citizen of the community. What is your thought on improving that aspect of a small town like this?
Well, it doesn't come cheap, but it does seem to, there's a demand for it. I mean, I live up 2 blocks from my office and a block from my church and 100 feet from the grocery store. So, my walking needs aren't very high.
Right.
But there's people who, and I should walk more, obviously, but when you go out anytime, day, evening, whatever, there's people walking everywhere on the trails in Neepawa. So to interconnect them and to improve them, this is great. Biking, I wouldn't ride a bike because I don't ride a bike anymore because I don't feel safe on them. I'm too darned old. But biking on the street terrifies me between the potholes. Sorry, Mayor Brian, and the traffic. I find it pretty risky. Like bike paths are really, really needed if people want to do some serious biking.
Yep. I'll say this as well, and I will speak for somebody I know who walks to work on a daily basis, and this is something they've complained about, and I'm sure they're going to be going on to the survey and sharing this with the town, so I'll share it with you right now, is that the crossover between the highway, between the southern portion of the highway and the northern portion of the highway is something they've always had issues with. They feel as though maybe Maybe it's a case of they need another set of lights, or maybe it's a case of, and I think this is more likely to occur, they need another very specific walking crossing pass. We got the one there.
Yeah.
I forget which street it is, maybe 3rd?
Around 3rd, yeah.
Around 3rd, where you hit the button, it flashes for you, but that's it. And there's many a time I've seen people crossing over a couple blocks or a block, even just a block. I mean, that's just being lazy. Walk the extra block, but a few blocks over, and it's dangerous. Let's remember, even though it's Main Street, that's what they call it, it's a highway. Treat it and respect it as such. And from the town's perspective, maybe that's something they need to look into. Maybe it's another crosswalk. Maybe it's more specific signage. I don't know. But part of the fear for some people to be able to walk on a regular basis is, well, quite honestly, getting hit by a semi.
Well, and the thing is that I know during the day most of the semis obey the speed limit, but I know at night a lot of them don't. They're barreling through here to a hell of a lot more than the speed limit.
Yeah.
And that's not right, but it doesn't matter after they hit you.
Yeah.
So, the walking paths, improving on foot or bicycle transportation, I think it's a great idea. But your chances right here in the paper or online, you can fill out the survey, use the QR code, and you get a chance to win $250.
Now, you could buy a decent little bike for that to use
right.
for the active transportation.
That's right, $250 prize, just answering some questions. Good on the town, because they I know that was a little bit of a hurry up there. It caused you a little bit of panic on Tuesday night, but we worked it out, or you worked it out. And good on the town for putting this out there on their website, in the paper, seeking information, seeking input from people. Often councils and political parties and all the rest of the government say, you get the rap that they don't ask people. Well, they're asking. They're asking.
Yep.
And so give them your opinion. Probably can sneak in an opinion on something else at the same time if you want to.
Oh, geez, yeah. People got opinions on this next thing we're going to talk about.
Uh-oh.
All right, we're going to share a little bit. Right after the council meeting, I came back here, checked how much space we had for this week's edition of the paper to get this in at the last minute. And then I did a little tour around for some other pictures, and was able to get a few pictures of some of the road work that is going on right now throughout the town of Neepawa. Now, you can see it. It is on page 15 of this week's edition.
Yeah.
There's 3 very prominent spots where they've done some digging. They got some orange pylons up right now, and they'll most likely, hopefully, will be filled in the near future. Over by the Roxy Theatre, over by the Red Apple and Gillen Small.
Yeah.
And the third one is, where is the third one again? I've forgotten off the top of my head. Between Safeway and the Anglican Church? United Anglican Church.
Yeah.
So those are the 3 ones most obvious right now we're going to notice that people are going to be driving around. Somebody said this to me the other day. They said, it clearly states on the sign by the Gillen Small one, road closed, not swerve. Swerve around it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like portions of it open. Well, what are you going to do? You got to get point A to point B.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, hopefully they can get it done quickly. I haven't checked to see when the paving company is coming in, because it's been a long complaint of mine that the paving companies tend to leave Neepawa till the very end so that we can mix hot oil and snowflakes to make pavement. Mm-hmm. And this, hopefully we don't have to wait till snowflake time to get this done. I wouldn't think so, or they wouldn't have cut it open this quick, but they've made the cuts and got them all squared off. So at least it's not little patches, it's decent sized patches. Hopefully they'll hold.
We'll see how it goes. Well, once again, I mean, if you were a loyal viewer of this show, you know my opinions on the roads in Neepawa. I'd love it if, they were flat, level.
Yeah.
But having said that, they do the best they can with the circumstances they are dealt with. This is no different than Brandon. Brandon's awful. It's no different than Portage. Have you seen a street in Portage lately? And it's most definitely no different than Winnipeg. Winnipeg's roads are a mess. They truly are, and for a much longer period of time than Neepawa. I guess why it rubs me the wrong way is because we've had it so good for so long. And I don't put that blame on this council. I don't put this blame on any council. It is what it is. There's only so much money that can go around. And they did a lot of it for water and sewer. They've got to do a lot of it right now for the new hospital and that water and sewer system. So, but in the future, hopefully it will be able to be looked after.
Well, you mentioned the hospital. The town has to come up. I heard it's increased the amount. I don't think it really has. The portion that the town has to pay, but the portion the town has to pay is $6 million for infrastructure for the hospital. Now that, in my books, is still a lot of money. $6 million, $1 million is still a lot of money to me.
Yeah.
But $6 million is a lot of money. So I haven't checked with them, and I don't suppose you've had time to either. But what stage it's at? But that's just for the hospital.
Actually, they did do an update in the most recent council. You can check that out. You can watch it right here on NAC TV. They always broadcast the council meetings, and then we follow up with a story in the Banner and Press. I was out there myself for the meeting there on Tuesday. We'll have that for our next edition of the paper. But let's focus again more on some of the road work and stuff that's going on. Over on Main Street, the highway, there was some very obvious work that was done in between the Dairy Queen and, what was it, 4th Avenue, was it?
Fifth.
5th, okay.
Between 4th and 5th, yeah.
Yeah, where they've dug up the sidewalk, they've taken out a bunch of hedges from there, and that all spurs from an accident which occurred recently in the spring, a auto accident. A concern was brought up, obviously, in regards to the sight lines. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not saying this is the opinion of the Neepawa Banner and Press, nor is it the opinion of NAC TV, but I'm flabbergasted, quite honestly, that it was the hedge that was removed as opposed to the one tree on the corner. Because whenever I'm coming out from that corner, it's not the hedge isn't the issue for me, it's that tree. But again, you know, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. Maybe I'm wrong. We got about 2 minutes here, Ken. What's your take?
Well, people may remember that they've been fighting about the trees and taking them out for 25 years. Those trees were planted in the early 1900s, and they're our signature, you know, the arching over the streets and all that kind of stuff. But they do cause problems, and they cause problems at that corner. I haven't driven down there to see how removing the hedge has improved the sight line. I know I use that street a fair amount. Haven't been down there since they took out the hedge. The hedge, by the way, was on town property.
Yeah, that's an important thing to emphasize for anybody that does sort of, you know, doesn't know the background on that. So.
Yeah, they did a survey and the hedge was on town property. Now, people in the area aren't very happy, as noted in a thumbs down in the paper this week about removing the hedge because of noise abatement from the highway. Because if you live behind that hedge versus no hedge at all now, it's going to be pretty noisy in your backyard.
And just privacy for that yard.
Yeah. If you drive by there, it's, oh my God, there's no fence, there's nothing yet, so it's pretty wide open.
That's why you got to pick up a copy of this week's edition to find out more about these and so many other stories. We've run out of time, but there's so much more we could have talked about. The 4-H Beef Club results, multiple minor baseball teams that went to provincials, updates on the Santa Clara Baseball League.
The artwork at Hidden Hollow.
Oh, we got that on page 2. You got to check out those pictures.
Oh,
that's why
yeah.
you need to pick up a copy of the Banner Press. You can get it anywhere in Neepawa or surrounding communities, or you can find it online at mywestman.ca. Now again, if you have any story suggestions for us, you can always call us at 476-3401 or via email at news@neepawabanner.com. We're sort of rushing through the outro here, but we always do appreciate you when you do take a little bit of your time and you spend it here with us. Ken, once again, thanks for sitting in and giving your perspective on, and of course Ken's column as well. I'm sure people always got an opinion on that too. You can check that out.
Every day.
Most definitely. We thank you for taking the time each and every week and spending it right here with us on NAC TV and the story behind the stories. Have yourself another great week.